very much for that heads up and for the warning. Can I welcome everyone to the Cabinet meeting of Warwickshire County Council today, which is the 10th of December, just about 2 weeks to Christmas, in case you haven't done your shopping, and good to have something to look forward to. So can I then move us on, first of all, to apologies for absence. And I know that we've just had apologies from Councillor Claire Golby, who was going to talk to one of our reports later on. But have we got any other apologies that you're aware of, Paul?
None that I've received, no.
Does anyone want to mention any apologies? And can I just, as usual, ask everyone to put their hands facility up if they want to speak, and we will also be using that for voting as usual. And please, can I also ask everyone, just reminder to keep yourself on mute until you want to speak, and then unmute yourself. So thank you all for that. I don't think there's any more housekeeping. Members' disclosure of pecuniary or non-pecuniary interests. Are there any? I am seeing none. So thank you for that. And moving on again to public speaking. I've not been made aware of any public speaking today. I think that's correct, isn't it?
That is correct, Chair. No public speakers today.
Fine. So we can move on then to the first item on the agenda, the substantive agenda, which is item 2, the 2021-2022 budget. And for that, can I ask Peter, please, Peter Butlin, to present it?
Thank you, Chair. This is the annual statement and the corporate board proposals for our budget coming into the next financial year. It's come on to, it was all put together just before the comprehensive spending review, so some of the elements and gaps that you are seeing in these papers will be filled in by some of the stuff that's already come through to us. I must kind of emphasise this is the Cabinet Corporate Board's view of their budgeting for the next next 12 months. COVID, the reality, has basically kind of made sure that we've had to rethink the MTFS, and that's in this paper today, in terms of where we see the MTFS going in terms of the reality of the COVID situation and all the extra expenditure that we've had to incur. There is also still some gaps in what we know and what we don't know, which will eventually be filled in by central government. I'm under the impression that there will be a settlement later this month, but as is all cases with government, they say certain dates, and we just kind of wait and see if it occurs. But they will then kind of fill in some of those gaps. I draw your attention to the fact that our growth in expenditure, in the amount of money that comes available over the next 5 years, will increase by 78.5 million, but the growth in our spending will increase by 127.2 million. Now that kind of emphasises where the gap in our expenditures will be over the next 5 years, and this is where when we come to the budgeting process, as is with the oppositions and ourselves, and when we put forward budgets in the future, we have to make some choices, whether it's savings, increases in council tax, etc., etc. But the statement as laid before you, a comprehensive statement in terms of where expenditure in the county, over 100 pages of it is all there, and I'm willing to answer questions on it.
Thank you very much, Peter. And may I apologise that after this agenda item, I will be returning to the minutes, which I just bypassed last time, just keeping you on your toes. So I'm looking for hands, and I've got 2 now. Can I ask Jerry Roodhouse first, Keith Condacore next? Jerry.
It's the Christmas spirit of missing the minutes. Happy Christmas. Yeah, no, can I thank the officers for bringing this report together? I think it's still around about December the 16th for the settlement, something around that date. Give or take a month or two into the new year, who knows? but we shall see how that goes. But yeah, we note all the contents of the report, and as always, we'll be discussing this in our group, and maybe coming forward with something or not. But we shall go through the programme. But I just want to place on record, I think, thanks to the officers for getting this together in the short space of time that they have.
Yeah, well said. Thank you for that. Keith next, then Dave Parsons.
Thank you very much, Chair. Sorry, a couple of things. One is obviously we're looking like we might have a harder exit this time than we probably all want. I didn't know if the effect of changing pound and changing inflation as a result of that would actually be much of a hit, and how sensitive we are, particularly to the higher inflation of like all the stuff for all our capital projects, or whether it's actually the people doing the contracts are already actually signed up to the exchange rate risk and obviously material cost risks. Thank you.
Thanks, Keith. I'll go back to Peter after I've taken all the questions. So Dave next, yes.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yeah. Obviously, these are difficult times, and as Peter has said, a lot of difficult, well, no easy options there. I would just say, though, I mean, we're looking probably at a 2% rise from our part of the council tax. You know, we can go up to 3%. I appreciate that there's some flexibility in that for the adult social care, but we've been doing this very consistently now. I know it's not something we want to do, but there is a straw and a camel's back out there. You know, the year on year, we're whopping up this council tax. It's not a terribly fair tax. It actually hits people with low income homes that are of low value harder than those with homes of greater value. I appreciate there are no easy options, but I think we've got to look at this in the context of where it's been and where it's going. And as I say, my own feeling is that there is a limit to how often we can keep doing this. It can't just go on forever. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Some of those discussions that I'm sure will be taking place at our political meeting at the council meeting in February. And I think it's fair to say, and I'm definitely on record of having said right at the very beginning of the concept of the adult social care precept that although it is a tax that fills a gap and does deliver new money into the system, it isn't absolutely on your point, it isn't necessarily in the places where it most is needed. And, you know, if in Warwickshire we have a better tax base than Burnley, the demand in Burnley may be greater than Warwickshire. But I am going to resist council tax raised in this part of the world going anywhere else. So, you know, I'm on record of having argued that case, Dave. So I'm with you on that, and I do think it is long past time that all governments have not grasped the nettle of getting a green paper settled and a way forward properly decided for social care. So I've dealt with that one, Peter, but I'm back to you now. If you're talking, you're on mute.
Keith, forever the optimist. All scenarios are worked through in terms of their budget, and whatever happens with Brexit and what effect it will have on the economy of the country or interest rates, etc., are all worked through on all their scenarios when we do our budgeting. So we will be has and will be taken into account. But I'm relatively optimistic, and I know you're not kind of that disposition. Secondly, the straw on the camel's back, I have to sympathise with that one, although this particular camera has got a very much stronger back than most people's. So we're in a strong position financially before we went into this crisis, so I'm confident that we can weather the storm.
Thank you, Peter. So moving to the agenda, I think we are for noting this. Can I move us to the front page and to the recommendations? And I think we would all like to put on record, as Jerry has identified, our thanks to the officers for their hard work in bringing forward this stage of preparation of our considerations for budgets for next February. So with that in mind, can I move us to the recommendations as printed on page 17? So hands up time. Yes, we have a, that's agreed by everybody. Thank you for that. You can put your hands down. So in the spirit of going backwards at the moment, can I please take us back to the minutes of our last meeting, which was on the 12th of November. They are as printed on pages 5 to pages 16. And can I ask if we are all in agreement with those minutes as printed? I think that is everybody. Is that everyone? Not quite everybody. Who have we missing? Yep. Oh. 2, 3.
Councillor Timms.
Councillor Timms, who's not. Yep. Yep. There we are. Thank you. That is everybody. Thank you for that. Right. Then we will move on to item 3. Again, Peter, this is for you to present. This is on page 121, and this is Warwickshire County Council and Homes England Land Development Scheme, which is a very exciting innovation, which I'm sure you're going to tell us all about. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Again, that's something I'm very excited about. As you know, we've been setting up a property company with the view of basically building houses and kind of developing our own properties across Warwickshire to stimulate and control the economy of Warwickshire. It's become ever more so an important thing in terms of our recovery strategy. But this is exciting in as much that Homes England, who have got a lot of expertise and will help us to accelerate the kind of putting in housing across the county. They're keen on, this is a pilot. We'll be the first to do this arrangement with Homes England, and I'm confident this will be kind of great news for Warwickshire and the possibility of building kind of a good many homes for people of Warwickshire. It's a unique, and we will be to some extent a little bit of a trailblazer. If this is successful, Homes England are looking to roll this out across the rest of the country. So I'm willing to take questions.
Yeah, thank you. And I think it is a fantastic opportunity for us to go forward with the the knowledge and the gained experience that Homes England can bring. So I really want to say a massive thank you to all our officers who have worked incredibly hard. This has not come about just by putting a piece of paper together and asking for our agreement. This has taken a great deal of experience in bringing it forward. And not only that, it is the confidence and trust that Homes England have in us to help us to deliver what we plan for our residents, which is better homes and homes in the place they need it for key workers and with climate change in mind. So I'm very grateful, Peter, that you've brought this to us today. It is a very innovative and exciting concept. I've got quite a few hands, so I'm going to start with Keith and follow on with Jerry after that. Keith first.
Thank you, Chair. This document's sprinkled with the word sustainability all the way through it, and it's really important that we don't overuse or misuse that word. One of the good things the new Paris mayor was talking about was walkable neighbourhoods and everything being within 15 minutes. So I think if we are doing these projects, they do need to have schools, GPs, little reparator shops within the 15 minutes, and those provisions being there when the houses are built. Whilst one would welcome all this money and all this thing, it does need a few principles of actually making sure that we don't do half the job of building the houses, and then people have to wait 5 years or 10 years for the schools and other things. So I really want it to be based on the 15-minute walking distance from all the facilities type ideas, so that we build sustainable communities and we don't build things that need more roads building and more people commuting long distances. We've got a massive problem in Nuneaton, and I'm sure it's across Warwickshire, with a lack of school places near where houses are being built, and you always need to build the houses near where you've got school places rather than build them in the middle of a green field. So whilst I'm not against this, I do want to make sure we do it properly sustainable and don't just say it's sustainable because it says it's sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Keith. And I'll move to Jerry Roodhouse.
Yeah, this is a welcome report. I mean, it's I think quite a move for Homes England to actually move away from their ivory towers and to come and do some, if you like, a deal with local authorities. But in the place shaping world that we live in, I think this is a good move. And as a pilot, it's a good place to be in development of that pilot. I note within the report the 10 schemes which you talked about, and also the opportunities of developing solar farms on smaller holdings, as well as the risks and the constraints. And I suppose the bit I'm really interested in is about the project management as this goes through, and how we can really hold that to account and make sure that it's held correctly by the people as it's project managed. It's mentioned in the risks, and I do know staff from our side have been through project management work, and I'm sure Homes England have, but I still have some issues around how we project manage going forward. So I'm really interested to sort of probably understand a bit more about how we're going to manage that going forward and ensure that the risk is kept to the minimum.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jerry. I'm moving on now. I've got Jeff Clark, Cam Core, Helen Adkins, Dave Parsons and John Holland. So in that order, Jeff Clark.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I do welcome this. I think you're right. It is an exciting opportunity, and I do welcome particularly the opportunities around the Transforming Nuneaton, which I think, if it's part of Transforming Nuneaton, will be central to the core of the actual projects anyway. So just to answer a question that was raised earlier, I think that's already built into the system there. But I do welcome the government's commitment to working with us on this and to bring these forward, particularly the affordable and the sustainable opportunities. And as is identified in 3.5, we do need to ensure that they are carbon. The carbon outputs of these developments are actually as low as possible to ensure that we do deliver the targets that the government has set and we've set ourselves as we move forward. It's a significant amount of investment. It's a large commitment both by government and by the county council, but I think it's an exciting one, and it will provide support, jobs and opportunities, particularly through the Transformation Nuneaton and the other projects that will hopefully follow along. But yes, we do need to ensure that we are doing a deliverable scheme here. So let's make sure that when we start this, we're on the ball with it. Happy to support this. Thank you.
So thank you, Jeff. Can I move to Cam now? Councillor Cam Core, then Councillor Adkins.
Thanks, Izzy. I just wanted to pick up on Jerry's point around the risks, and just give him some assurance that there will be due governance around this. We're not going into it blind, and that we will be looking at every project on its own merits with a lot of probably preparation done beforehand, and looking at what the proposals are, what the cost benefits are, not only in terms of monetary but also in terms of social benefits as well. So I take on board your point, Jerry, and I absolutely agree with you that we will need and we will ensure that the governance around this is in place, and we'll be happy to share that. I'm sure Peter will pick up as well with you as we move into the ventures going forward. Thank you.
So thank you, Cam. Helen is next, followed by Dave Parsons and then John Holland. Helen.
Thanks, Izzy. Yeah, just to say, just to repeat what Keith had said, really. So I welcome the report, but just so that we, make sure we're creating communities with the right local amenities and not any substandard homes with any poor infrastructure. So we need to be just making sure it's as good as we can possibly make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. And Dave Parsons and then John Holland.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to welcome this development and particularly commend the hard work that must have gone into bringing Home England on board. I mean, this is really positive stuff and it's good. Welcome it definitely. My only slight reservation is that we don't let developers off the hook, as it were. We've got this emphasis on affordable and social housing, and this can't and shouldn't be used as a bargaining tool for developers to say, well, in that case we don't need our affordable and social element, as it were. But with that small proviso, this is an enormously welcome development, and I think people who've done this have done incredibly well. Thank you.
Yeah, great, Dave. And of course, the element of certainly developer building is largely down to the local authority, the local planning authority and their percentage, but it is an important point that you make there. John Holland.
Yes, thank you. The lack of affordable housing is a very big problem. But the thing I've just picked up on in section 2.3 talks about town centres, and encouraging residents in town centres is very beneficial. Residents look after the place, and I think all of us in Warwickshire are going to be looking at recovery plans for our town centres as part of our bigger recovery plans. Thank you.
Yeah. So I've got no further hands up, and just to say that I think this neatly fits in with the property company that has been brought to Cabinet before, and that of course is why we have this arrangement with Homes England. But I do also want to say that we have a really big opportunity to build jobs, apprenticeships, skills within our county on this, and for us to be able to deliver housing that has quality, that has low carbon outputs, is very affordable for some of our key workers and our older people. This is something that we have had an ambition for a very long time, and I know, Peter, one of your many conversations with Richard Chataway has been this project that we have. So I think this is a fruition of one of his ambitions that's come true. So back to you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll kind of go through. Helen and Keith kind of mentioned sustainability and taking control of what we get. We was criticised in the past when we kind of disposed of property with Warwickshire County Council too. We got planning permission, disposed of, and once it was disposed of to a developer, etc., our inputs into that development were very minimal. And as is kind of the experience with a lot of people, you don't always get the social housing when you want it, and sometimes the community health centre and all the other things are kind of forgotten about or played out or conditioned. We have got an opportunity here through our own company of kind of basically making sure that the kind of stuff that we build delivers on what we want in terms of what our priorities are. So yes, it will be sustainable. It will deliver those community assets that we need with the housing that we have to deliver. And by doing this through our own property company with JVs, and the JVs might take in the form of another developer, but it also could take into the form of a JV with a district, a borough, or even a parish in terms of where the projects come from. This is kind of joint venture working at its best. And having a partner like Homes England who can guide us into the right direction with all the expertise, money and know-how that they have is a real plus for us. The project management is exactly right. We need to project manage these things and deliver. Where the odd occasion where these similar sorts of projects have failed is that they did not deliver. And there will be an oversight board with members on who will make sure 4 meetings a year we're looking at the delivery of what we promised. They're also kind of the governance and oversight. We'll go to O&S next week, and you will see the way in which it's going to be set up and those governance statements. It's very complicated, but it's very, very kind of based on all the bad experiences and the good experiences that have kind of been experienced across the country. And also Homes England had a play in that as well. Town centres, yes, it's part of it. We have to reinvent our town centres, and we have to kind of make more people actually live in those town centres to create that economy, that footfall. And also it kind of plays into the more sustainable living where we're not having to get into a car to travel to work, etc., as home working becomes the new norm. So, which we will be talking about that subject later on. But I think that's answered all the questions that was laid before me. And again, I'm kind of looking forward to this project kind of becoming a real kind of a feather in the cap of Warwickshire County Council over the next 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And congratulations once again to everybody. I know Richard Ennis is with us today. He's put a lot of work in with Homes England on this, and we are very excited about the future that this will bring. Obviously, making sure that it is, rock solid, and members will feel confident about their role within this. So I think now I'm going to move us back to the page 121, which has got those 2 recommendations. One, that we approve this entering into the pilot arrangement, and 2, that we authorise the Strategic Director for Resources to enter into the pilot arrangement on terms and conditions considered acceptable to him. So can we please take that vote now? And we have a full turnout, so unanimous support, Peter, for your paper. Thank you all very much. We can lower our hands, and can I then take us on to the next agenda item, which is Colin Hayfield. This will be you, Education Schools Capital Programme 2020-2021. To you.
Thank you, Leader. This is one of the ongoing series of reports we get allocating our available capital spend in order to provide additional school places at particular pressure points. It fits in with the sufficiency strategy that we approved in Cabinet a month or so ago, and this deals principally with or the largest sums of money are providing additional places at Stratford-on-Avon School and also at Eton in Nuneaton, as well as some smaller ones. I would emphasise, particularly in terms of Nuneaton, that we know that there are going to be a wider demand for school places and indeed new schools in the future. And before anyone brings it up, I would just say that we remain committed to the building of a new school at Top Farm and indeed elsewhere. But that is not the matter for today. The matter for today is to approve the funding for these additional places where shown, and to give officers the authority to go ahead and carry that out. And I would congratulate officers on what I think has been a well constructed and clear report. Happy to take questions, Leader.
Thank you very much, Colin. I've got a couple of hands up. First of all, Jeff Clark, followed by Keith Condarkle. So Jeff first.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, obviously, Eton School is in my division, and I welcome the paper coming forward and the recognition that we were struggling to find places. This 150 places that are going to be provided with this additional monies coming forward, I think will be a real help to pupils, students in the shorter term, obviously. And I also welcome Councillor Hayfield's comment acknowledging the fact that Top Farm is still a requirement and is intended to be coming on stream as is necessary. What I would, just a couple of questions around it. Obviously, with the development of Eton School, it is in a fairly constrained area at the moment. There are a number of accesses to it. I would like to see a full consultation with residents in and around the area and the stakeholders in relation to access and transport access. So I'd seek assurance from the portfolio holder that full consultation of the planning proposals as they develop will be undertaken. So, and as I say, also welcome the comment that it is intended that we still provide further spaces on Top Farm as they're required. Thank you, Leader. I'm inclined to support this, obviously, because it's bringing asset into my area and hopefully will enable students to get the education they need in the northeastern Eton. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Jeff. Keith, you're next, and followed by Jonathan.
Firstly, yes, I welcome Jeff asking for a consultation for the locals around Eton School. But we also need the air quality monitoring turned back on, which sadly is a borough council function. We do all the roadworks and traffic schemes to try and get people in and out of school, but the borough actually monitors the air quality, which is crazy. But currently there's no suitable monitoring around Eton School. So if we are going to massively increase the traffic into there, we need to do something to mitigate it and to monitor it. Secondly, it is an absolute crazy system the government's put us in with this bidding for wave schools. We now need, really, before we do this, to know if a new wave school is happening or not, because that will provide 5 classrooms a year, and we're here providing 1 classroom over the years for almost £5 million. And what we do by not knowing what's happening in the future with government funding is we build school extensions which one day will become redundant or will take students away from the new school. Yeah, we need 3 classrooms per year, 3 year groups. And we're building 1, which actually puts us in the awkward position then, according to the provision, of needing another 2. So it becomes a right mess. We waste an awful lot of money building schools that aren't fully utilised because we haven't got that insight into the government's funding of the rest of the package. And I really fear for the mess we're getting into with schools and the amount of traffic will crisscross, because this new extension to Eton may provide local places, and then further north you build a wave school which has 5 class worths driving through and past Eton. So there's no central logistical planning with the way the government's funding these wave schools, the way we have to bid and don't know if they're successful, and the way we have capital separate from revenue, because we have a problem with schools being built that will be empty because we do not have money for the teachers. So the whole system's a total mess. It'll have a massive environmental impact. I welcome the funding, but I wish it had been planned earlier. These children that are going in 2 years' time into these new classrooms, they were born a decade ago, and we knew they were coming. And this is a far too late knee-jerk panic expansion to cope for the fact we haven't yet got the wave school built. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Keith. And Jonathan?
Thank you, Chair. I'm pleased to see the environmental implications section of this report, and I think somebody's, had a good, taken that seriously. There's still a few words in there that says there's that if economically feasible part of it. It says we will do renewable heating if economically feasible. And it would be a dereliction of duty in these new buildings that we're hoping going to be there for 30, 40, 50 years to be doing things like putting gas central heating in, when probably in 10 years the government's going to tell us we're not allowed to do that anyway. And so it can be that a little bit of extra money now could have a massive positive saving in the longer term. So my question for the portfolio holder is, please could you make sure that you get to see the long-term financial costs around putting in something like a ground source heat pump system, which may be a little bit more expensive in the first 3 years, but in 10 years' time will be paying us and the school dividends. So please could I ask whether you make sure that you see those long-term costings before giving the go-ahead on these?
Jonathan, I'm very glad you said that. I know that Heather Timms has said pretty much the same thing in our discussions earlier, and we do need to be somewhat, in her words, somewhat more robust on our environmental impact chapters and mean what we say. I'm saying your words, Heather. You've just popped up. Did you want to come in? Do you want to say anything?
Thank you very much, Jay. Yes, Jonathan, you must have heard me speaking about a couple of hours ago, because that was exactly the words that I was saying. I understand that officers would like to be cautious because that's, and they have got a remit around what budgets we've got on these things. But when you're looking over the longer term, as we should be doing with these changes that we're making to schools, then I think we do have to consider that cost being spread over that amount of time. So totally agree with you.
Absolutely. And I'm very glad we've actually just said that in this place, so that it just underlines and confirms our commitment that we all agreed to 18 months ago, just short, on climate change. So thank you for that. Right, Colin, I'm going to go back to you to finalise this report, if I may.
Okay, fine, thank you. Jeff Clark, yes, absolutely happy to see some consultation on the access. And I'm no doubt I will get full support from the portfolio holder for transport and highways in doing so. Sorry, that's a bit tongue-in-cheek, but I know I will. Jonathan, yes, good point, well made. And Heather had championed that bit beforehand. And sometimes we just need to keep in mind, though, that we're in allocating this money, we're often spending other people's money as well as just our own. And it isn't always quite as easy as saying, well, we just need to allocate a bit more. But absolutely, I take the point. And I would love our schools to be sort of beacons of environmentally friendly building or environmentally sensitive building in the future. Keith, I don't know really where to start with you, Keith. This is certainly not a knee-jerk panic expansion. Very far from it. It's planned, it's strategy. I thought you'd had the strategy explained to you in the past. If necessary, I can make arrangements to have it explained to you again. But I don't know where you get your figures from, frankly, in terms of pupils and needs and things. There can't be the same figures that I see. And yes, well, I'm confident that we do have a handle on understanding the need for school places in Nuneaton area, and that we do have strategies in place to deal with that. And this is a further important stage in that. So, Leader, I will happily recommend the two recommendations to Cabinet, please.
Thank you very much. Keith, I know your hand is up. I'm actually moving to the vote now. Can I suggest, Colin, that you do take Keith up on your suggestion and have a further briefing with him on the matters that he's brought up. And at the moment, I'm just going to ask Cabinet to move, as you say, to the vote on page 131, the recommendations as printed there. Thank you for that. And that is a unanimous agreement to your Cabinet paper. Thank you, Colin. Right, hands can go down, and I'm going to move us on to agenda item 5, which is on page 143. This is back to Peter Butlin. This is the annual infrastructure, yes, it is Peter Butlin, annual infrastructure statement 2019-2020. Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's me again.
It is you again.
The annual
all you today.
The annual infrastructure statement is a report that we have to do legally, which basically itemises and shows where we spend and hold money for 106 agreements and SIL. Now, SIL at the moment between the districts and boroughs is only used, I think, in one area. Majority of the money comes to us via 106 agreements. SIL, as you know, is a pooling effect, so there's a pool effect of money which then is drawn from down in terms of need for infrastructure, whereas the 106 agreements are basically itemised and targeted. If you look, our ambition is to make these papers far more transparent and readable to the general public in terms of where that money comes from, where we're holding it, and where it's being spent, and also in the delivery. So our ambition is to get better at this and make it more plausible in terms of, not so much plausible, but transparent and easy to read. I draw your attention to I couldn't itemise. The total amount that we hold and have spent recently is 78.13 million. So it gives you some idea of the kind of total spend that we do in terms of kind of supporting developers, infrastructure, not to mention that money that's held by education for 106 agreements. So I'm willing to take questions on this, and we'll kind of go from there. Thank you.
That's really helpful explanation. Thank you, Peter. I've got Keith first, and then Dave Parsons. Keith.
Thank you very much, Chair. Occasionally the government does something sensible, just very occasionally, and this report they're requiring us to make is one of those few things, because it does actually give us councillors and the public a nice list of what things we've asked for from developers and how much they are and what's been delivered. And I mean, straight away what glares at me on the list is the bus services for Wellington, which is £40,000 in the last year. It seems to be entered twice on page 157 and 158, but we've got the stupidity of they put the bus service in, but they've only put the bus stop on one side of the road, so you can get from town, you can get into town, but you can't get back from town without going all the way around the development and back. So there's a whole lot of stuff which we need the officers' time to actually make sure things are properly done. It's no good just ticking the boxes off saying we've got this infrastructure. It does need a lot of checking to make sure it's actually usable and it's used. I mean, Councillor Butlin keeps on about how much money we're spending on all this stuff. It really does need to be used well and actually has a good environmental or educational or health benefit. I also am a bit concerned because in number 7 on the list, it talks about land being given, and we've got their land for 185 new primary school places on Calendar Farm, phase 2. And the trouble is, we get the land, but then it's a delivery of the school. It's another school issue, and that school will be delivered 4 years after they start building the houses. So I think we do need, along with this plan, actually a timescales of when things will happen, because often the infrastructure is delivered years after it's needed. Just like Eton School is, I do look at the figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. Dave Parsons.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to welcome Peter's statement about making 106 and SIL much more open and transparent and easy to understand. I know I've struggled to explain to people in the past about, where this money is going and where it's coming from, very often because I don't understand it myself because I can't get hold of it. And I mean, yes, I think this is really important, particularly with the amount of development that's going to go on in Warwickshire in the not too distant future. I think it's really important that residents should be able to see where this money is coming from and where it is going, and do it with some certainty. So I welcome that the move that Peter's mentioned there. Thank you.
That's helpful. Yes, it is a mystery to many, and if we don't understand it, what chance of our residents understanding it? So yeah, fully agree with you. Peter, I'm going to hand back to you now because I don't think we've got any more questions.
Thank you, Chair. Just one comment towards Keith in terms of timing. Sometimes with the delivery of schools, we have to kind of make sure there's enough pupils to fill it. If you build a school and there's no pupils to go into it, it becomes very expensive to run when you're sitting around, a lot of teachers sitting around with half a dozen kids. So sometimes that timing looks a little bit illogical, but it's about timing in terms of making best use of resources once we open that school. The other thing is, the transparency of this item is basically allows you, when it comes to kind of itemising the fact that there's a bus stop on one side but not on the other, to basically itemise that and go to the officers and say, oh, where about this bus stop? Now, this will be a tool for you to be able to kind of do that for us. So on that basis, I think I've answered the questions and I'll move for approval.
Great. Just moving then to those are the two recommendations that are down on page 143. I see hands going up now. Am I there? Not quite. Yes, we are there. Thank you very much. So everyone has voted unanimously to support this paper. Thank you, Peter, for that. Thank you all. I'm going to move us then on to next item is item 6. Unsurprisingly, this is Peter who will be presenting this. It is Revenue Investment Funds 2020 to 2021, pages 161 for those looking for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Revenue Investment Funds, this was something that was being put into place. It's a £20 million fund designed to basically recovery from the COVID crisis, and it's split into 4 tranches as explained in the papers. What I've got before you now is a kind of a selection of investments that we're making from those tranches of thing, and they could fall into 2 categories really. One in terms of kind of capital investments towards recovery and creation of jobs, and the other one's in the mitigation of the effects of COVID, which is investments into adult social care and mental health issues. The capital investments come in terms of RIF and also the property company in terms of a small amount of money that goes into that to kickstart that. So these are some good news stories. We're using the money wisely, and it's all designed to make recovery from the COVID crisis easier and better for the residents of Warwickshire. I'm willing to take questions.
So thank you, Peter, for that. I've got Les Cable's got a hand up. So would you like to come in, Les?
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank Peter for the report. I've always been a great supporter of this method of funding because life is fluid, as certainly as COVID has shown. So I particularly want to commend the integrated health records. How many times do we say that it'd be great if we're all on the same page and we only had to talk to the patient or talk to someone in our healthcare once? This will achieve that. So absolutely first class and something we are brilliant to be getting on with, and also to particularly commend the work on improving mental health and well-being, critical, brought to the front with COVID, and particularly welcome the emphasis on suicide support and signing in this. We had a difficult suicide rate, but we've really worked hard in public health and with our partners to bring it. And this is further work going in the same direction to ensure we do our very best for people in difficult circumstances. And finally, welcome that we've put the funding in place to do our work through the BAME community, which we started some months ago. But again, we are leading and getting on the job. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I've got Heather next.
Thank you, Chair. I again just wanted to really welcome the Solar Together project. I think this is really helpful for Warwickshire residents. Having a purchasing club which vets potential suppliers and creates the cheapest price possible for people that are looking to install solar panels is a great step forward. I know that you go out there for looking for solar panels and you're mesmerized almost by the choice and the things that people put in forward for you. So this is a great step forward for Warwickshire residents. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I haven't got any hands up, so I'm going to hand back to you, Peter, if you could.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the comments. I think we must be a good double act here. Everybody kind of brought in on to kind of make a comment to the investments we've made into their different departments. Mental health is one of my pet subjects. Before the COVID crisis came about, there was a spike in Warwickshire's suicide rates among 18 to 45-year-old males. And with the crisis going in with unemployment, job losses and the stresses that COVID has created, I think investment in that area is an absolute must. So I'm very pleased that I'm bringing this forward today. So on that basis, I'd kind of move for approval.
Thank you, Peter. I'm moving you all back to the page 161. It has got 5 recommendations, which are all there as printed, so I'm definitely not going to read out all 5 of those in anticipation that you have read them. And we are now voting, so if you could raise your hand if you want to support this. So I think, is that everyone there? Yes, nod from Monica. Thank you all very much for that. Right, you can bring your hands down, and then next item on the agenda is item 7. We're going to have a change from Peter, and this is going to be Heather who's going to introduce this, the review of Warwickshire County Council's environmental management system. Heather.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Very much wanted to bring this forward to see the light of day of the kind of management systems that we have in Warwickshire County Council. We're one of the very few councils that have environmental management systems across the country, and it's really helpful for our strategic direction on climate change and being able to bring forward measures that we can look at very carefully and ensure we have the data to know exactly what we should be doing and where we should be putting our efforts. So I would also like to congratulate the team that they've had a 2-day assessment from BSI and they have passed. We also have 0 what they call non-conformities, which basically means we've passed with nothing to do. So I think that is extremely great for the team. They've obviously worked really, really hard. This is a very complex organisation, and there's lots of areas that they have to look at, from energy, from buildings to transport to climate change, etc. So well done, the team, and really pleased that I could bring this report forward.
Thank you very much. Yes, it's a really good report, Heather. When I read it, I was really struck by the statement of intent that it gives, which I think is very, very helpful. Thank you for that. So yes, hands up. Jeff Clark, followed by Jonathan Chilvers, followed by Keith Condicle. Jeff.
Thank you, Leader, and I welcome Councillor Turner's bringing this report forward, and particularly welcome the 4.2.6 in relation to the travel and transport proposals as well within there. As members may be aware, we did at the start of this week start the review of the local transport plan, and I think this will feed very well into that review, and look forward to working with all the members to make sure we get a sustainable strategy across Warwickshire. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you for that. And Jonathan, to you next.
Yeah, thank you. And I would like to very much welcome this report and also congratulate the team on a hugely complex and wide-ranging piece of work. And I think thinking back to the beginning of the year, one of the key aims within the climate change group that we gave ourselves was doing this baselining work by the end of 2020. And so we've made it with
2 weeks to spare.
With 2 weeks to spare. So yeah, thank you to the team. And I think just to pick up on a couple of key points, I think the assessment of some of the kind of key risks and challenges are some of the best I've seen from the authority so far. Particularly, it talks about the climate change adaptation risks in terms of risk of severe weather events, and how that's going to impact on us and Northern Authority. But also, that's the second one in that list of risks, is the increased growth of business and housing within Warwickshire, and how we are going to address kind of the negative externalities, as the economists would say, things like air pollution, congestion, and loss of natural habitat. And this is the key challenge that I feel as an authority we haven't fully grasped yet, is how are we going to create jobs and manage our economy in a way that does keep our ecological impact and our CO2 emissions down. And I think we're only at the start of really grasping that. And I think, as Jeff said, that came out in the local transport plan, that we've still got planning huge road schemes, which are going to be these huge negatives, but we've got to find a way, and I think we can, of growing those businesses, providing the houses without suffering that natural habitat, without emitting carbon dioxide. And I think we haven't grasped that, but I look forward to now this report being kind of a key plank of going forward.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and yes, a good stepping stone. And I think, I mean, it's interesting just looking at what we're doing today, which will have reduced all of our carbon footprints quite a lot. So we probably need to think about the new normal and how that's going to go forward. So always something to still do, but a really good stepping stone for that. Keith, you're next, and then it'll be back to Heather for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think the report is really good because it shows we're actually monitoring stuff. If we spend money on doing all this good stuff, it's good to actually have some figures, and it's also good to really put the message forward that actually running a good environmentally sound organisation actually can save money as well. It doesn't need to be just this massive cost. It can actually make things work better, less pollution, more recycling, but also there are bottom line savings in doing some of this stuff. And I think the one area we do need to extend it to is the highways and transport impact, because that is, if you look at all the stats on big climate change emissions and things, it's things like waste, transport and buildings. And the one thing I think we need to do more on is the transport issues, both from ourselves and our highway projects, and our responding to planning applications. Quite often we really do let the side down on making developments up to the same standards that they could be. But generally, I'm really impressed with what our staff have done here and what improvements we've made as an organisation. Our waste teams and things like that and energy management teams are really good. But I say we do need to sort of build on this as well, for really thinking about transport. It's like the Transforming and Eaton scheme. We mentioned that a particular junction will have less CO2 emissions, but we're moving traffic somewhere else. We're moving more traffic. So I think this environmental auditing needs to go into all our highway projects as well. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Heather, back to you.
Yes, thank you. Please can I reassure Councillor Condacourt that is in the report. All of those environmental objectives are setting out exactly what we will be looking at as a council. So particularly on transport, which is one of the biggest carbon emitters across Warwickshire. We'll also be looking to take forward all the projects that we have in the pipeline, our green shoots, community funds, our tree planting, looking at our construction projects and looking for net biodiversity gain across the board on those. So there's some real objectives in there, and from this we'll develop the targets that we think we as an organisation can successfully meet. Thank you, Chair.
So thank you very much, Heather. Back to the page 169, we have got two recommendations. One is that we endorse the continuation, and two, note the environmental risks and objectives. And I think you've had a good debate around that, Heather. So can we move to the vote, please, folks? And just hands up. And I'm not sure we've quite got everyone. I know some of you are having a spot of bother, but I think we're there now. So thank you. We have universal approval of that. Thank you very much for that. And we can bring our hands down. I will do just that. And moving on, then it's going to be, the next one is item 8 on page 201, school road safety education task and finish review. Now this is report of the excuse me, the community's overview and scrutiny committee, and I did send apologies for Claire. So Andy, would you please present this report?
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'll start off with a message from Councillor Galvey, and let me read this out briefly. Sorry, I've got problems with the microphone. From Councillor Galvey, I was going to speak today on the School Road Safety Education Task and Finish Review report, not only as Chair of the Community's OSC, but also as a parent who has to do the school run. Ironically, my having to do the school run is the very reason why I'm not able to deliver these words in person. Even though this report predates my tenure as Chair of the OSC, I'm very happy to support the findings. I'd like to say thank you to the Working Party and also to the officers who are working hard, especially with the new Safer project, to reduce the number of issues we face as parents simply trying to get our kids to school safely. I'm also grateful to Councillor Crump for speaking on my behalf today. I'm not sure I quite delivered it in the same way as Claire would, so I apologise for that, but hopefully you've got the message there for me. Yeah, firstly, I think this is great. We as a council and as administration have listened to our residents and helped and approved the TFG. And I certainly welcome and appreciate the work undertaken by the TFG. I thank you very much from me. Key highlights from the report: the group was originally formed in 2015, and then in 2020, the OSC approved the second group as members again felt more needed to be done around educating safety on the roads as well as promoting green travel to and from school. It met between August and October and presented at the Community's OSC in November. There was cross-party briefings from the school's safety teams, which I attended. And again, goals of the Safer project include encouraging residents to take up more physical activity to travel, as well as promoting and changing public attitudes to safe and active travel in Warwickshire. Implement the bikeability scheme, which teaches pupils how to ride bikes and feel safe cycling on roads. Reduce the number of people killed and seriously injured on Warwickshire's roads. Reduce air pollution and increase the overall air quality, and help achieve the goals of working towards Warwickshire's green plan and climate emergency. The Safer project is already started in some route schools and has been supported very well by Warwickshire Police, Fire and Rescue, Public Health and Highways England. That's all I've got to say on the matter. I'm happy to help with questions. And again, I think there's going to be a positive effect for our staff as well on paragraph 2.6, which will be part of the Thrive at Work initiative. So again, many positives from this matter. And I'm just going to turn the light on because I've gone dark. I can't see myself very well. So again, that might be an improvement.
You're on mute, Izzy.
Sorry. Thank you for that, Monica. I wanted to thank the Task and Finish group for the work that they have done. We were, all of us, I've got a number of primary schools. I don't actually have a secondary school in my division, but I've had a considerable number of primary schools, and the issue of school safety, access to exit from school is really important, and it's one of the regular items that comes up at my parish councils, and I think this is absolutely the right thing. So we've got some good recommendations that have come forward. I, for one, will be supporting them, and so thank you to the Task and Finish group. Thank you, Andy, for your work on this as well. And we will move to questions or to comments. Judy Falk, Keith, Heather, Jeff, and then Helen.
Thank you very much, Izzy. I really welcome this report. I was lucky in January every time to be able to go into schools with a safer team to see how they deliver assemblies and work to particular classes. And we got some big plans that we were going to do, and then COVID came along and stopped all that. With some really good joint working with the police and fire brigade, but we can hopefully take that up again when we can do meet in person and not virtually. But I really welcome this support. As you said, Izzy, I think every one of us has at some time or other had dealings with parents, with residents about school parking, and the only way to really resolve that is to get people out of cars and get people walking, cycling, there's a cycle bus that started in Whitnash, which has been really good and positive, and hopefully we can do that in other areas. So I really welcome this and support this report.
Yeah, thank you, Judy. Keith, Heather, Jeff, then Helen.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 4 primaries, 1 secondary, and could potentially have 6 primaries and 2 secondary schools the way things are going. So it is a massive issue, the school run, and the safety stuff is really good. But I would like also an emphasis on a lot of the design work around making the areas safer and 20-mile-an-hour limits. I think that's an area that keeps getting pushed to one side, and combined with getting the education and the work in the schools and the education on the parents, I do think we need to, as a county, look at greatly increasing our 20-mile-an-hour zones. That would be great. And I know it's always controversial, but it is something we need to do. And I think it's been very good. The new officers have already contacted me, and I've passed on contact details for my new primary school at Lower Farm, and that relationship seems to be starting. So it is really good when we're motoring on this, if that's not the word to use.
Thank you. Heather, Jeff, and then Helen.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on the sustainability of this scheme, because I really think having the posts is important, but also important is engaging with the community to change behaviour and have those local champions within the schools that then can be passed on down through, because otherwise schemes tend to die away if they're not continually reinforced. I want children to feel safe biking and walking to school, and I know all parents will want this. It addresses the obesity agenda. It covers everything, making sure our children are fit, healthy and safe, and we would all want that, particularly as a counsellor, when you know that the issues that arise that give you quite a lot of input into your to-do list is around schools and that school run and the concerns that get raised about safety. So terrific initiative, and great that it's getting going.
Thanks, Heather. Jeff Clark, and then finally Helen.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, it does seem to be a perennial issue, the safer issues around schools. And again, it's something we are picking up in the LTP, and I'm sure we'll have a robust discussion on that. Just picking up further in relation to the 20 mile an hour opportunities, the government are looking at giving councils opportunity to have localized speed restrictions and time speed restrictions. That's something we could possibly look into as well, or we are going to look into, should I say. It's really essential that we use every tool in our armoury to make sure that the children, students get to school, college as safe as possible. So again, as I say, it's on the LTP's programme, so we'll be bringing that in as we develop the programme, and hope to bring something back that is robust and helps deliver a safer routes for all our students. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Helen.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I welcome this very much. I just wanted to mention, though, the fact that we haven't got the Safer Routes to School programme running anymore, which I think was a great programme. And I've got 3 primaries and 1 secondary in my area, and all 3 of the primaries were the outside of the school was redesigned to make it a lot safer for children to arrive in school, and there was some work as well to put scooters and bicycles safely locked up, etc. The secondary school was not completed, and that one actually is a school which could do with some work in terms of how, even when children come out of the school, how safe it is for them to walk out of the school and get onto a proper crossing. That's something that hasn't been addressed yet in that area, and that's something that I think if the Safer Routes to School programme ran again would actually be able to cover that. There wasn't any money left, I think, in the pot to finish it off. So just to make that point, thank you.
Thank you, Helen. I think that's the last. Cam. Sorry, it was the last one, but it's not quite the last. Cam.
Sorry, Izzy.
Right.
I just want. I agree with the comments made by Councillor Adkins regarding the safer routes to school. However, I paid for a crossing in my own ward through my delegated budget. So it may be something that Helen may want to pick up with her delegated budget to see if she could use that.
I'll tell you what, Helen, I think there is an issue. We'll take individual issues. Let's take those outside of here, and let's keep to the strategic issue we've got, which is this paper. Andy, I think it's back to you.
Right, I think a lot of points have been covered, and I think Councillor Clark and Councillor Timms have been reading my my script as well, so thank you for that. I could do the top trumps and say I've got a secondary school and 5 primaries in my ward, so I'm no so far. But and in my other ward, I've got even more, but that's another matter. Alison Williams and her team did some great presentations on this. And one of the items they covered was bike and scooter storage. What the team will be doing is a bespoke scheme for each school rather than a one size fits all, because obviously a primary school will have different needs to a secondary school. For example, in Southam Primary is about 100 metres away from Southam College, but they've totally got different needs. So that is one of the items they will be covering, and if the issue about a safe path out of the school, again, that can be tackled as well. Certainly we're doing some online assemblies, Councillor Falk, to get over the COVID restrictions, and there's a great banner, Cars and Kids Don't Mix, that a lot of schools are using. A while ago somebody used to say education, but in this case, in road safety, it's education, engineering, enforcement, and I could even add another, evaluation. And this has all helped to reduce the amount of accidents in the under 25s, which is quite positive and encouraging. Obviously the message seems to be getting through. For other drivers and older drivers and pedestrians in particular, perhaps it isn't, so we need to have a different message. But this is great. This is all about long-term behaviour change. There we are, Councillor Timms, we've got that one, long-term behaviour change. And also certainly moving forward to make us fitter, healthier, reduce air pollution, and cover many green issues. I've waffled on long enough. I'll go back to page 201 and recommend the recommendations on there. Recommendations 1 to 3, please.
Thank you for that. That's done my job for me. So definitely we will now move to the vote on those 3 recommendations. Right, just looking. We got everyone. We have got everybody. Thank you. That is a unanimous vote of support for the Task and Finish group and for your agreement to that, Andy. Thank you for that. Can I then move us on to item number 9, which is West Midlands Rail Limited governance evolution. And Jeff, this is Jeff Clark. This is for you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, obviously, as we move forward with the West Midlands Rail Limited governance evolution, there is a recommendation on this. Supports the proposed changes to the governance arrangements from West Midlands Rail Limited, and that's set out further in the report. What Cabinet are asked to support today the changes to the governance that in West Midlands Rail. The changes are limited to involve the combined authorities mayor becoming a non-voting chair of the West Midlands. It's all right, it's a lot of titling here. West Midlands Rail Board. And the creation of 2 deputy chairs positions reflecting both the shires and the unitaries with their 7 seats per authority sort of thing. The changes are proposed to allow West Midlands Rail Limited to be in a position to take full advantage of further devolved responsibilities for rail services in our area, as government have indicated that the devolved powers will pass to an elected body such as the mayor. The report does set out further proposals around what is expected in relation to West Midlands Rail, and as members may be aware, Councillor Butlin is currently the chair of that group and hopefully will be selected as one of the vice chairs for the shires. The mayor, as I say, does gain direct formal influence over local rail services and rail strategy, and by becoming a non-director and a non-voting chair, he'll have in the post, he'll have that balance to manage across the area, but also to ensure that we are in a position to take full advantage of any benefits and to ensure that both the shires and the unitaries are represented, and we can lobby government should that be necessary. I'll leave it at that, Chair. If there's any questions, happy to take them, but seek members' support on this. Thank you.
So fine, I've got Colin Hayfield, Keith and Peter. Colin's looking very alarmed. He'd just forgotten to take his voting hand down.
It was a lazy hand, leader. I'm sorry.
I had a feeling that was the case. Keith and then Peter.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's interesting reading this report because there is an issue with the elected mayor for the West Midlands looking after his patch and then the wider patch. And particularly from the Neaton to Birmingham services, they're franchised but not in the West Midlands franchise. So almost all the services going into Coventry and a lot of the ones around Leamington and Warwick are West Midlands trains, whereas we have a cross-country service. And obviously we want to expand that where new stations stocking forward and a higher frequency of services into Birmingham. And obviously the mayor has his own ambitions for services within Birmingham. So I do get it that we need to be careful about the governance of this, so that the capacity of Birmingham New Street, which is very limited, does provide services for Warwickshire. And the particular problem we've got is cross-country services that aren't part of the West Midlands franchised as such. They're in a different franchise. And I do hope some of that will get sorted out. I mean, the government's refranchising and effectively paying the franchises just to take over at the moment. So there does need to be a sorting out of it all so that we get a joined up service, rather than at the moment we've got a strange cross-country run some trains, West Midlands trains run others.
Peter, where are you?
I'm just clicking on. I'll take him 5. I was kind of involved in kind of writing this as my position on the board. This is kind of a good thing for us. We found that although the mayor of West Midlands Combined Authority is basically kind of represented on the board by the metropolitan members, it's felt that because so much money and so much influence is coming through the mayor's office in terms of their transport strategy, that it would be a good idea to have the mayor as a non-voting chair. The voting aspects of that board is still implemented and controlled by the shops and the metropolitan areas, as it was before. What is now so important now is that 2 vice chairs, one from the shires and one from the metropolitan areas, will have a kind of a more influence.
Yeah.
It is a good thing for us in terms of having a strategic approach in terms of transport across the Midlands.
Thank you all, and I'm moving back to you, Jeff, for the end of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I think most of the points were covered by Peter there, but from a Warwickshire perspective, any further devolution for rail in the West Midlands will enable Warwickshire via the West Midlands Rail Board to have a greater say and influence how some rail services are delivered in Warwickshire. And I'm sure that would be one of the areas where Keith mentioned about the Millington to Birmingham line onto Leicester. It's an area that we do need to ensure is developed and delivered as we grow in the area. So I'll move the recommendation as set out, Chair, if I may. Cabinet supports the proposals, changes to governance arrangements for the West Midlands Rail Limited as set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Great. So we're moving to the vote. Hands are going up. I've got 9 in support. That's a unanimous vote. Thank you, Jeff. So thank you all. The last papers on the public papers are to you, Cam, and you will be presenting agenda item 10, which is how we work programme, agile working offer and online protocols. Cam.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, I can't see anybody on my screen, so hopefully you can see, you can hear me.
I hear you.
But I'm going to leave my camera off just in case I get thrown out. So hopefully you can still hear me. Okay. So thank you. So pre-COVID, if you can remember that far, we were looking at new and agile ways of working through the How We Work programme, which was very much a part of our transformation journey. As members will know, a key early phase of that work was the shift to M365 and the rollout of the new technology. This is what has enabled us to make the shift so quickly to remote working at the outset of the pandemic. At that time, we saw an unplanned overnight move of 4,500 staff from being predominantly office space, spending on average 20% of their working week away from the office, to becoming predominantly home-based agile workers, a huge achievement, especially as it was done basically overnight. Our experience over recent months has enabled us to accelerate our plans for agile working and has strengthened our ambition around having flexible and agile workforce. The report sets out the agile working offer to staff. The offer seeks to manage agile working by outcomes, giving employees a choice over how, where and when to undertake their work, subject to outcomes being achieved and business needs being met. The report also proposes a set of online proposals for how we want staff to work in the future and the culture we want to create. Whilst the agile working principles will be promoted to staff as the new and expected way of working, It's also recognised that all services or individuals will be able to work in this way, and that there are benefits of bringing teams together physically from time to time. Our plans for our future office accommodation, which is a separate exempt item on this agenda, will make provision for this. This is really exciting time of change for us and the way that our staff work going forward. We recognise a huge amount that staff have delivered during COVID and have listened to what their preferences are in terms of future way of working. They've expressed a preference for making flexible working more permanent, with the majority wanting a hybrid model for the future. The proposals in this report reflect staff feedback taken from the check-in surveys, and I think we're on our 4th check-in survey currently. So just to finish off, Chair, we are confident that this flexible style of working will have a positive impact in a range of ways, such as recruitment, retention, staff sickness, which we've already seen impact of in our last cabinet report, where we reported 9.15, I think, from memory, in terms of sickness. And creating a high performing workforce, which is what we've been striving to achieve since we started the transformation programme. So, Chair, I'm happy to take questions, and I will stop there.
That's fine, and we can certainly hear you clear as a bell. So you're obviously having a spot of bother with technology, but it's fine as far as this end's concerned. So I've got 2 hands up. Helen first, Helen Adkins, followed by Jerry Roodhouse. Helen, and then Keith.
Thanks. Yeah, I welcome this on the whole. I think flexible working is a very good thing. Certainly, we as a family have seen the benefits of it from me and my husband's point of view. I do hope this is based on choice, though. I know it's based on evidence you've collected over the last few months, but I hope it's going to be based on choice and it's not going to be forced upon employees. Because I think we need to take into consideration people that perhaps do enjoy that work environment, do enjoy it more often than other people, and also we've got to think about the expenses, and we've got to create allowances for people. I know you can claim some money back, etc., from the government, but I do think we have to think about how much it costs people to heat their homes, telephone bills, electric bills. So I think it needs to be properly thought through, and it needs to be choice rather than prescriptive. Thank you.
Yeah, I do think that came out of Cam's presentation, that was already in there. So Jerry.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a welcome report, and I noticed on Appendix 1, was it page 218? There's this interchangeability between the words agile working and flexible working. And of course, the flexible working is a legal right, as it says, and agile working is a principle. And I think that we need to possibly strengthen that wording around that, because if that's the definition, everybody's using it in an interchangeable way. I'm agile working or I'm flexible working. Well, they're 2 different things. One's a legal right and one's an actual principle. So I think there's something about actually just making sure we get that message, and whatever communication or whatever we're doing, that language is consistent between the legal right and the principles of what's trying to be achieved, because I do think that's quite, it's maybe nuanced, but I think that's quite important, really, because of that difference in that, as I say, the flexible working, it's my legal right around that, but agile working, that's just a principle you want me to abide by. Well, I might abide by it or not, depending. So I'm just hoping we can actually make sure we actually define that, make sure it's clear and consistent communications in whatever we do, because I have noticed how people adapt this. They adapt the terminology to different situations.
That's a helpful point, Jerry, and I'm sure Cam will pick it up at the end, but thank you for that. Sorry, what's happened? I've got hands. Yes, Keith, then Les, then Jeff Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I've been working from home for most of the last 20 years, so it's really not new to me, and it's got a lot of challenges, so it's good to see bits in this report about work-life balance and various other things. And I think it is really important that people go to work at a certain time and then come home, even if they're actually working from home. There was this sort of joke in one of the software contractors magazine saying, go out the front door and walk to work, or change you do something that puts you in a work mode and a non-work mode, because they can have a burnout of people not going home from work if it's into a different place. And I do think it's good to offer people better broadband and things. We've got fibre broadband, which I think only costs about £2 or £3 more a month than non-fibre. And I think we do need to, because it was done in a rush, a lot of PR staff are working at home who might actually benefit from having a better broadband and things like that. So I do think we need to look after our staff and make sure it works as well and as easy as it can do.
Yeah.
And when you make a cup of coffee in the morning, go to the bottom of the garden, have a look at the flowers, and then walk back in the house to get that daylight, because the other issue can be a lack of that circadian rhythm, that sort of daylight night thing. But I think it's generally a good thing working from home. It does really give people a lot of flexibility, but it can actually mean you get out of sync with your body clock and you work in evenings, and it can become unhealthy as well.
Do you know, I'm definitely going to take your advice. There's something I've been doing wrong, so it must be that. Thank you, Keith. Les.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I welcome this report, because certainly discussions with any staff that I work with have welcomed the flexibility that it gives and some home life balance. And certainly we need to applaud our staff for the things they've done in between to ensure they still work as teams without stopping for a collective coffee break or things like that, which does pick up what Keith has said about breaking the monotony of sitting at one of these screens, as we all know. But yeah, it's great for our staff giving that flexibility, and it does acknowledge the fact that doesn't suit everyone. We have put that flexibility in, which I think is great. So a very good thing. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Les. Very helpful. And finally, Jeff Morgan. You're on mute.
I find myself
there you are.
In almost complete agreement with Keith, which is disturbing. I would love to go down the bottom of the garden and smell the flowers, but it's absolutely pouring with rain here at the moment. My circadian rhythms have been boshed on the head with these days where it never seems to get light. I think organizational development, there is a strong case for people physically being together. I know we're not ruling this out. I know that we're looking at a flexible arrangement, but there are times when if you develop esprit de corps, you really do need to get people physically together. And I think there is a need in all of us, wonderful as it is to see you all at the moment. I much be with you all in person, so don't let's forget that.
I know. Yes. Yeah. Yes, I agree. Cam, that's it. So it's over to you now, if I may.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. So just to come back to Helen, really, to say yes, absolutely agree with you. We are in consultation and talks with members of staff, and currently, and also partly to pick up on Jerry's wording around flexible and agile, and the terminology as to legal reference and principle. So we are having these conversations with our staff currently. Just for information, we have 250 staff who are actually on our Warwick estate who are actually on flexible working contracts. So it's just to give you a number, out of 4,500, we only have 250. And also what I'd also like to say is, we've been trying to do this for a long time, and having a lot of people now working from home, understanding now work-life balance is so important, especially now, because you look at the news and you're listening to COVID. There's been some great news around the vaccine information and all the rest of it, but work-life balance has never been so important. and as has well-being and our mental health. So I think all of that falls really strongly in this as part of this document. And just also wanted to just pick up on about benefits of, some of our staff have expressed through the staff survey that they've expressed benefits of not commuting and the issues around parking as well. So there's a whole host of information that we've got before this report came here today. I welcome it. I hope that Cabinet will support it, and I'm very pleased that members who have spoken today are supporting it too. So, Chair, I move the recommendation as laid out on page 211 and welcome Cabinet support. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Cam. And we're moving to the vote. So, just allow a little time for those sticky hands, and we've got a unanimous support. Cam, thank you very much for that. And may I just take the opportunity, I know we've done it before, but it can't be said too often. We're very, as members, and I'm speaking on behalf of all of us because I know we all think that, we are incredibly lucky to have such a wonderful workforce who have dedicated so much time, so much of themselves to looking after our residents over the last period of this pandemic. I know they've done it before that, and I don't want to say this is a new venture because I know they've done it before that, but it's been more apparent this time. And I really want to thank everybody who works within Warwickshire, and I'm incredibly proud to be a member of this county council because they're fantastic, every one of you. Thank you very much. And on that note, I did say that we have unanimously supported your recommendations, Cam, and I'm going to say that's the last report in the public papers. So at this moment in time, I'm going to move that members of the public be excluded from the meeting for the items mentioned below, which are 12, 13 and 14, on the grounds that their presence would involve the disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of Part 1 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972. I wonder if we could just agree to move that paragraph. Thank you. Just looking for a few hands, please. And I have unanimous support for that. Thank you. So I'll just wait a moment.